Welcome, friend. Tonight we will walk a quiet path together through stories and stillness. There is no urgency here, no task to complete, no destination requiring your arrival. This moment is enough and you are already exactly where you need to be. Let your body rest where it lies. Let your breath move as it wishes to move. The world outside continues without needing your attention, and that is perfectly fine for now. Tonight belongs to stillness, to the soft glow of ancient wisdom carried across centuries. We will visit old temples and meet wise teachers. We will listen to stories that ask nothing from you except your gentle presence here. You need not remember every word or hold onto every meaning that passes through. Let them move through you like water through open fingers, like wind through tall grass. Close your eyes if you have not already done so. Feel the weight of your head against the pillow beneath you. Notice how your shoulders settle naturally into the surface that holds them. Your breath finds its own rhythm without any effort from you at all. There is a quality to this hour that invites honesty in ways daylight cannot. A darkness that holds space for truth to emerge without judgment or hurry. In this quiet, we can speak of things that matter deeply to the heart. We can explore the timeless questions that humans have always asked themselves. What brings peace to a restless heart? How do we release what hurts us most? Where does stillness live within us when everything feels chaotic? These questions have echoed through monasteries and meditation halls for thousands of years now. The answers are not complex, though the mind often makes them seem so. The truth is simpler than we imagine it to be, closer than we think. Somewhere in the mountains of ancient China, rain is falling on temple roofs. It has been falling there for centuries now. The same gentle rhythm, the same patient sound washing over curved tiles and wooden beams. Monks have listened to it while sitting in deep meditation halls. They have listened while copying sutras carefully by candlelight through long nights. That rain continues even now, even as you listen here in darkness. The teachings we will explore tonight are not bound by time or place. They speak to something unchanging in human nature, something that recognizes truth immediately. You may have never studied Buddhism or sat in formal meditation practice. Yet these stories will feel familiar to you in some deep way. They touch the part of you that already knows peace perfectly. Breathe slowly now. There is no rush to understand anything at all. No pressure to grasp or achieve some particular state of mind. Let your attention rest gently on the voice, on the images that arise. When your mind wanders, that is natural and completely expected from you. Simply return when you notice, as softly as a leaf settling back to earth. The first story begins in a monastery, centuries ago now. In a time before electricity lit the darkness or automobiles carried people quickly. Life moved at the pace of footsteps, of seasons changing gradually. In this monastery lived an old monk who had practiced calligraphy for 60 years. His brushwork was renowned throughout the entire region, each character a perfect balance of strength and grace, of discipline and freedom flowing together. Masters would travel great distances to commission work from him especially. They came to watch him create these beautiful forms with ink and brush. But they often remarked on something unusual about this particular master. The old monk was completely blind, had been for many decades now. He had lost his sight years earlier, yet his calligraphy had only grown more beautiful with time. Younger monks would ask him how this was even possible at all, how he could create such perfect forms without seeing them take shape before him. The old monk would smile gently and say nothing in response to their questions. He continued his work in silence, brush moving across paper with absolute confidence and certainty. Each stroke was placed exactly where it needed to be somehow, without hesitation or doubt. There was no correction visible, no second guessing in his steady movements at all. The brush seemed to know its own path perfectly through space, guided by something deeper than sight, something deeper than conscious thought or careful planning of each movement in advance. One autumn evening, a scholar arrived at the monastery gates seeking this blind master. The scholar had travelled for many weeks carrying questions that troubled his sleep at night. He considered himself educated and well-read, familiar with all the great philosophical texts, yet he found no peace in his accumulated knowledge at all, no rest in his understanding. The abbot led him to the old monk's studio where he sat waiting in stillness. The room was simple, lit by a single oil lamp casting shadows that danced. The smell of ink hung in the air, mixed with incense smoke and autumn wind. The blind monk gestured for the scholar to sit, though he could not see him. The scholar began immediately, as scholars often do when anxious and uncertain. He explained his confusion and frustration with practiced eloquence and careful precision. He had read every sutra available to him over many years of dedicated study. He had studied with numerous teachers in different temples and varied traditions across lands. He had practiced various meditation techniques with dedication and unwavering discipline for years. He understood the concepts intellectually very well indeed, could explain emptiness and impermanence clearly, could explain them with great eloquence to anyone who would listen to his words. Yet understanding brought him no peace whatsoever, no rest from the constant seeking. The more he learned, the further peace seemed to slip away from his grasp somehow. The old monk listened without interrupting once, his sightless eyes turned toward the window. When the scholar finally finished speaking, exhausted by his own many words and explanations, silence filled the room completely for what seemed a long moment suspended in time. The monk reached for his brush and dipped it carefully in the ink before him. He began to write slowly, deliberately, creating characters on the blank paper with care. When he finished, he handed the paper to the scholar sitting across from him expectantly. The scholar looked down and saw 2 characters written with exquisite, absolutely perfect beauty. They read simply this message for him: "Stop reaching toward what you seek already." The scholar stared at them for a long time, feeling something shift deep inside. Stop reaching for understanding that eludes you constantly despite your best efforts and study. He had been reaching all his life towards something always just beyond his grasp, stretching toward understanding, grasping for peace that seemed always ahead of him, chasing after wisdom that seemed to move away as he approached it steadily. The blind monk spoke then, his voice quiet as falling leaves in autumn afternoon. "I lost my sight 30 years ago now," he said to the scholar sitting before him. "At first I thought I had lost everything that mattered to me in this life. How could a calligrapher work without eyes to guide the hand across paper? I spent months in complete despair, refusing to touch my brush at all those months. But eventually I had to try again somehow, had to pick up the brush once more. And when I did finally try, I discovered something completely unexpected happening to me. Without sight, I could no longer judge my work as I created it before me. I could not compare it to some ideal form existing in my mind as model, could not criticize each stroke as it appeared on the paper before my examination. I could only feel the brush moving through space, trust the muscle memory completely. Muscle memory built through decades of devoted practice every single day without fail. My hand knew what my eyes could not see anymore at all in any way. And in that trust, I found a freedom I had never known before in all my years. Without reaching for some result imagined in advance, the monk continued softly and gently. There is only being here in this moment as it unfolds naturally before us, without judging what appears on the paper or in the mind or in experience. There is only creating in this moment now, nothing more than this simple act. The brush moves because it moves according to its nature. That is all there is. The ink flows because it flows according to physical laws. Nothing more needed. Nothing is added by force of will. Nothing is forced into being against natural flow. This is how peace exists in truth, not as something gained through our efforts, but as what remains when grasping finally ends, when reaching stops completely and utterly. The scholar felt tears on his face, though he could not say why they came. The blind monk's words had touched something deep inside him that recognized this truth. The scholar stayed at the monastery for 3 days after that meeting in the studio. He watched the blind monk work each day in silence and stillness and presence. He noticed how the old man never hesitated before beginning a new character on paper, never stepped back to evaluate his progress or compare it to some standard of perfection. He simply dipped his brush and began immediately, allowed each stroke to complete itself fully, then moved naturally to the next stroke without pause or second-guessing what had come. There was no separation between the monk and his art somehow, no gap anywhere, no gap where doubt could enter, where fear could take root and grow and spread. On the morning of the 4th day, the scholar bowed deeply and prepared to leave. The blind monk gave him a final piece of calligraphy to take home with him, a single character that meant simply this: present, here now in this moment only. The scholar carried it home carefully and hung it where he would see it every day. Gradually, over weeks and months, his reaching began to soften like ice melting slowly. His questions grew quieter, less urgent, less demanding of immediate answers from anyone. He discovered that peace had been waiting all along for him to simply stop. Just beneath the surface of his striving, beneath all the seeking and endless grasping. Let yourself breathe here for a moment, feeling the natural rise and fall of breath. The rise and fall of your own chest without controlling or directing it in any way. The story asked something of us, though gently, without any demand at all pressing. It suggests that what we seek might already be present right here with us, hidden only by our constant reaching toward it, our grasping for what we already have. Consider your own life, the ways you stretch toward peace or happiness you imagine. Stretch toward understanding or achievement or love or acceptance from others around you. What if stopping that reach was itself the answer you have been seeking all along? Not giving up entirely, not ceasing to care about anything that matters to you, but simply resting in what already exists in this very moment now, nothing more. Your breath exists without your effort, without you doing anything at all to create it. Your heartbeat continues without your management, without your constant attention to keep it. Life itself unfolds without your constant oversight, without micromanaging every tiny detail. The blind monk could not see his work at all anymore after losing his sight, so he had to trust the process completely, had to surrender to something beyond control. He had to let go of comparison, of judgment, of controlling outcomes perfectly. In that release, excellence emerged naturally from years of practice and devoted presence. What might change if you brought that same trust to your own experience right now? Where in your life do you hold on too tightly right now? In this moment, trying to force things into the shape you think they absolutely must take? Where does reaching create tension that prevents the very peace you seek so desperately? These are not questions that need answers tonight, not problems to solve immediately now. Let them simply rest in your awareness like seeds planted in dark soil, beneath the surface. Seeds that will grow in their own time without your constant attention or worry. Breathe again, slowly and deeply, feeling your body heavy against the bed beneath. Notice the darkness behind your closed eyelids. Notice how it holds you gently, the way sounds seem softer at this hour of night somehow than in daylight. Everything is inviting you to let go, to stop the reaching completely and finally, to simply be present with what is here right now. Nothing more than this. The second story takes us to a different monastery in a different time and place. This temple was known throughout all of Japan for its beautiful garden and grounds. The garden was maintained with meticulous care by the monks who lived there together. Every stone was placed with clear intention, every pine tree pruned with absolute precision. Masters would visit specifically to sit in meditation there, surrounded by raked gravel patterns, surrounded by perfectly balanced composition that spoke of harmony and peace and order. But the garden had one curious feature that puzzled many visitors who came there. In the center of the main courtyard stood a single old cherry tree, ancient and gnarled. This tree, old and gnarled with age and weather, was never pruned at all, ever. Its branches grew wild in all directions naturally, some dipping nearly to the ground below. In spring, its blossoms fell in messy drifts across the carefully raked gravel patterns. In autumn, its leaves scattered everywhere, disrupting the pristine patterns created daily. Many times over the years, younger monks would ask the abbot the same question. They asked why this tree was allowed to grow untamed and wild in the center. Everything else in the garden reflected such careful discipline and perfect order throughout. Why permit this one element of chaos to remain in the center of everything? The abbot would smile mysteriously and tell them to sit with the question patiently, to let understanding arise naturally rather than through explanation and words from him. Years passed slowly in the monastery, as years do in such peaceful places. Monks came and went, practiced deeply and left for other temples eventually in time. The wild cherry tree continued its cycles season after season reliably and faithfully, blooming extravagantly each spring, shedding leaves each fall without restraint or concern. And still the question remained unanswered through words alone, through any explanation. One spring morning, a young monk named Takashi was raking the gravel carefully. He was raking the gravel beneath the cherry tree when petals began falling again. Pink petals were falling steadily, undoing his careful work as quickly as he completed it. He felt frustration rising in his chest, a tightness making his movements sharp and harsh. He had been working on this particular section for over an hour with great care, creating perfect lines and waves in the gravel with his wooden rake in patterns. Now the blossoms covered everything in pink, and visitors would arrive soon for meditation. Visitors would arrive soon for the morning meditation session in the hall nearby. He would have to start over again and again repeatedly until blooming finished. Start over until the blooming finally finished in a few more days of constant work. The abbot appeared silently beside him, watching the petals fall like pink snow. Takashi set down his rake and bowed deeply, embarrassed to be caught in frustration, embarrassed to be caught in resistance to what simply was happening naturally. But the abbot's face held only gentleness, no judgment at all visible in expression. "Tell me," he said quietly, "why are you raking this gravel every single day?" Takashi blinked, confused by the simplicity of the question before him now. "To make the garden beautiful for those who come here," he answered simply and directly. The abbot nodded slowly, considering this answer with care and attention and thought. "And what is beauty exactly?" he asked next, probing deeper into understanding of nature. This question was larger, more difficult to answer with simple words or definitions. Takashi thought of the patterns he created with his rake every day without fail. The clean lines, the sense of order and peace they brought to observers walking. "Balance," he said finally, choosing his words carefully and thoughtfully for the teacher. "Harmony and order throughout. Everything in its right place as it should be. Naturally." The abbot gestured to the cherry tree above them, heavy with blossoms now blooming, petals drifting down like pink snow in the morning light continuously without stopping. "And this tree," he asked gently, "is it not in its right place here now? Is its nature not perfect exactly as it is right now in this moment?" Takashi looked up at the wild branches above him stretching everywhere without order. The untamed growth, the abundance of blooms covering every branch and twig completely. Yes, he thought to himself, it is perfect in its way, in its wildness, but it disrupts everything around it, creates chaos in the order we create daily. As if reading his thoughts perfectly, the abbot spoke again with deep wisdom. "Life disrupts our plans constantly," he said, "without asking our permission first ever. Change arrives without permission, without warning, without consideration for our preferences or desires. Blossoms fall when they will naturally, not when we are ready for them to fall. The garden teaches us both order and surrender at the same time here together. The beauty of intention and the beauty of acceptance existing together here in harmony." He picked up a fallen petal from the ground, held it carefully in his weathered palm, held it on his palm for a moment, then let the breeze take it away from him. We maintain what we can with care and attention to detail and presence always. We create order where order serves the greater purpose and beauty of all beings. But we also learn to allow what cannot be controlled at all by us ever. This tree reminds us every spring of an important truth we forget too easily. That perfection includes imperfection, that beauty encompasses both the raked line and petal, both the intention and the chaos, both the order and the wildness existing together. Takashi stood very still, feeling something open inside him like a flower blooming. The frustration began to dissolve, replaced by a different quality of attention entirely now. He saw the garden with new eyes then, completely fresh perception without filters, not as a finished state to maintain at all costs against nature's forces acting, but as a living conversation between intention and nature, between human will and flow. The raked gravel spoke of mindfulness, presence, careful attention to small things daily. The wild tree spoke of acceptance, of nature's wisdom beyond human planning and control, of beauty beyond human control, beyond what we can force into being with effort. From that day forward, when Takashi raked beneath the cherry tree, each day faithfully, he did so differently, with a completely different spirit and understanding than before. He still created his patterns with care, still gave full attention to the work. But when petals fell, he smiled rather than resisting what was happening naturally. Sometimes he would leave them where they landed, seeing how they enhanced the design, how they enhanced the lines rather than disrupting them as he had thought before. Other times he would rake them into flowing patterns of their own unique character, working with their chaos rather than against it, partnering with nature's contribution always. Visitors began to notice something special about that section of the garden now. It felt more alive somehow, more honest than other perfectly maintained areas everywhere. The perfection was not diminished by the scattered petals at all in any way. It was deepened by them, made more true and real somehow, more authentic and alive. The garden was teaching what words alone could not convey to anyone who visited. That life is both order and chaos, intention and surrender, control and release together. The old abbot would sit on the temple steps in the evening watching light fade. Watching the light fade through the cherry branches above the garden, slowly changing. He remembered planting that tree as a young monk himself, decades ago now, long past. His own teacher had instructed him very clearly to never prune it at all, ever. To let it grow according to its own nature and wisdom without human interference. At the time, he had not understood why this was important to do at all. But over the years, he had watched countless monks struggle with that tree endlessly, fight against its wildness, then slowly, eventually come to acceptance and peace within. It was the best teacher in the monastery, more effective than any lecture could be, more effective than any lecture or sutra or formal instruction could ever be. It taught what must be learned through experience rather than explanation or theory alone. That peace comes not from controlling everything around us perfectly at all times, but from releasing what does not need control, what cannot be controlled by anyone. Let your breath flow naturally here without trying to deepen it or change it, without trying to change its rhythm to match some idea of how breathing should be. Notice how it breathes itself, how your body knows exactly what to do without instruction. This is like the wild cherry tree growing according to its nature without pruning, needing no interference, no pruning, no shaping from outside itself at all ever. What in your life resembles that tree right now, growing in ways you never expected? Perhaps a relationship that unfolded differently than you expected or planned so carefully, or a career that took surprising turns you never could have imagined for yourself. Perhaps your own nature, which refuses to fit neatly into the categories imagined, into the categories you once imagined for yourself or that others imagined for you. Can you see the beauty in that wildness, the perfection in what grew without plan, the perfection in what you could not control, what went its own way despite you? We spend so much energy trying to prune ourselves and others into shapes carefully. We want life to look a certain way, neat and orderly like raked gravel in patterns, but life prefers abundance, wild growth, scattered petals falling where they will naturally. Both are necessary for true beauty to emerge, both order and wildness together here. Both are beautiful in their own way, serving different purposes together in harmony. The practice is learning when to rake and when to let blossoms fall where they will, when to apply intention and when to surrender to what is happening right now. Your breath continues rising and falling like petals drifting down slowly through air. Your heart beats with its own wild rhythm, untamed by thought or will or control. Even your mind, which seems to need so much control and management and oversight, actually works best when allowed some freedom to move and wander naturally without force. Thoughts come and go like blossoms in wind, like leaves falling from trees in autumn. They do not need to be perfectly arranged in neat rows or organized carefully always. Rest here in this understanding, this gentle allowing of what is appearing right now. Nothing is wrong in this moment, nothing needs fixing or changing right now at all. Everything is unfolding as it must, as it naturally will according to its nature. You are like the garden, containing both careful attention and wild beauty within you. Both the raked lines and the scattered petals covering them sometimes in seasons. Both the intention and the surrender, both the control and the release existing together. All of it belongs here. All of it is you exactly as you are right now. The night deepens around you as you rest here, listening quietly to these words. Somewhere, a cherry tree is blooming in darkness right now, this very moment somewhere. Somewhere, petals are falling onto raked gravel in an empty garden under moonlight. And a monk is learning to smile, learning to allow what is without resistance. The lesson continues across centuries, across cultures and languages and traditions everywhere. Arriving here in this quiet moment where you lie listening to these words now, let it settle into you without force, like rain soaking slowly into earth beneath, like water finding its way into soil without effort or resistance to what is. In another monastery, this one perched high in the Himalayan mountains touching clouds, there lived a monk known for his terrible memory, his constant forgetfulness always. He could not remember the sutras he was supposed to chant daily in the hall, could not recall the schedules or rituals that structured monastery life carefully for everyone. Other monks would find him sitting in meditation during work periods when tasks waited, or sweeping the courtyard during teaching time when he should be studying with others. He was always lost, always confused, always forgetting what came next in the schedule. The senior monks tried very hard to help him over many months of patient effort. They wrote out schedules and posted them everywhere throughout the monastery for him. They assigned him simple, repetitive tasks that required no memory at all to complete. They grew frustrated when he continued to forget despite all their careful efforts helping. Continued to drift through the monastery like a confused ghost, perpetually lost in space. Some suggested he was not suited for monastic life at all, that this was clear, that perhaps he should return to the village below in the valley where he came. But the old master of the monastery watched this forgetful monk with great interest. He watched with interest and noticed something important that others had missed entirely. He noticed that despite forgetting everything else constantly and repeatedly, without exception, the monk never forgot to practice kindness toward every being he encountered daily. He never forgot to bow when greeting others, never forgot to offer help immediately, never forgot to offer help when he saw someone struggling with a task or burden. His memory failed him constantly in practical matters. that was undeniable to everyone. But his heart remained remarkably present, remarkably awake, and responsive, always to need. One winter evening, the master called the forgetful monk to his chambers privately. The monk arrived late, having forgotten the appointed time as usual and expected, then forgotten which door led to the master's room in the complex of buildings. When he finally entered, bowing apologetically and embarrassed by his lateness again, the master gestured for him to sit down across from him by the fire burning. "Tell me," the master said quietly, "what do you remember about anything at all?" The monk looked confused, unsure what was being asked of him in this moment. "About the teachings," the master clarified his question, "about the Dharma we study here. What do you remember of all that you have heard over these years with us?" The monk's face fell with shame and disappointment in himself, in his terrible failures. "Very little, master," he admitted honestly, unable to lie or pretend otherwise to hide. "I try very hard to remember, but the words slip away immediately from my mind. I cannot hold the sutras in my mind for even a moment after hearing them. I am a terrible student, the worst student here without question or doubt at all." The master nodded slowly, then asked another question of him unexpectedly and simply. "And when you see another monk carrying a heavy load of something somewhere, what do you do in that moment when you encounter them there struggling alone?" The monk answered immediately, without thinking or pausing to consider at all first. "I help them carry it, of course," he said simply, as if this was obvious to anyone. The master smiled knowingly, seeing what he had hoped to see in this response. "Why do you do this for them?" he asked next, probing for deeper understanding. The monk looked puzzled by the question, its simplicity confusing him somehow now. "Because they need help with the burden they carry," he answered honestly and directly. "Because carrying is easier with two people sharing the weight together in cooperation." The master leaned forward slightly, his eyes bright with recognition and approval of this. "You see," he said gently, "you remember perfectly and completely what truly matters. You remember the only thing that truly matters in all of this practice we do." The monk shook his head, not understanding at all what was meant by these words. "But I do not remember the teachings, the sutras, the wisdom of Buddha at all. I cannot recall any of the important texts we are supposed to know and study." The master's eyes were gentle and filled with compassion for his confusion and suffering. "The sutras are fingers pointing at the moon in the sky," he explained with great patience. "You have somehow skipped the finger entirely and found the moon directly yourself. You have forgotten the map, but arrived at the destination perfectly anyway somehow." He continued, his voice soft in the candlelit room around them both sitting together. "The Buddha taught compassion as the foundation of everything else in practice always. You practice it without needing to remember his words at all, ever in any form. He taught presence in each moment, being fully here with what is, appearing now. You are present with whoever stands before you in that moment completely and fully, even when you have forgotten everything else about your day completely and entirely. He taught that wisdom is not knowledge accumulated in the mind over years of study, but direct seeing of what is needed now and responding from that seeing immediately. You see what is needed and respond without hesitation or second-guessing yourself ever. This is not failure at all, this is mastery of the highest kind possible for anyone." The monk sat in stunned silence, tears forming in his eyes slowly as understanding came. All his life he had felt inadequate, broken, less than others around him always. He had been ashamed of his terrible memory that could not hold anything at all, embarrassed by his constant confusion, by always being lost and uncertain about everything. But now the master was suggesting that his forgetting was not an obstacle to practice. Not an obstacle, but a strange kind of gift, a particular doorway to truth itself. Most monks, the master said, become trapped in remembering texts and concepts endlessly. They memorize texts but forget to live them, to embody what they say in action. They can recite every sutra perfectly, but struggle to offer simple kindness to others. Their minds are full of teachings and philosophical understanding of great depth, but their hearts remain closed to the actual suffering of beings before them now. You have the opposite problem, which is not a problem at all in truth really. Your mind forgets constantly, so your heart must lead you through everything always. And the heart never needs reminding about what matters most to all beings suffering. From that evening forward, the forgetful monk continued to forget schedules completely, continued to forget sutras and all the formal teachings and structures of practice. But he stopped apologizing for it, stopped feeling ashamed of what he was inside. He understood now that his path was different, not lesser or inferior to others. While other monks studied in the library for hours every day reading texts carefully, he would find himself naturally drawn to wherever help was needed most urgently. He would appear in the kitchen during busy meal preparations without being called there. In the garden when weeds grew thick and needed pulling from the soil immediately. At the gate when an elderly visitor needed assistance climbing the stairs with difficulty. The other monks gradually stopped seeing him as incompetent and slow and failing, began to see him as he truly was beneath the surface of appearances and judgments. Someone who had transcended the need for memory by living completely in presence, by living completely in the present moment without past or future interfering at all. He could not tell you what happened yesterday in any detail or with any accuracy, or what would happen tomorrow, what was planned or scheduled for later in the week. But he could be fully, completely present with what was happening right now before him. Years later, when the old master died peacefully in his sleep one quiet night, the forgetful monk was chosen to succeed him as the new master surprisingly. Many were surprised by this choice, even shocked by the decision made by the dying. But the master had left explicit instructions in writing for all to see and understand. He has forgotten everything except love, the master had written in his final letter. This makes him the wisest among you, the truest teacher available now to guide others. The forgetful monk never gave teachings in the traditional sense at all to anyone, never lectured or quoted texts or explained philosophical points to gathered students waiting. But his presence taught what words could not convey to anyone seeking truth and peace. People would leave conversations with him feeling somehow lighter than when they had arrived, though they could not say what had been discussed between them in that time together. He would forget their names immediately after they left his presence entirely and completely. Forget what problems they had shared, what suffering they had described to him openly. But while they sat before him, he was utterly, completely present, with them fully. He listened with his whole being, every part of him attentive and open to them, responded from his heart without filtering through memory or accumulated knowledge of anything. This unfiltered presence was more healing than any advice or wisdom could ever be. He lived to be very old, forgetting more and more as the years passed steadily. Eventually he forgot his own name, forgot he was the master of the monastery entirely. But he never forgot kindness toward all beings he encountered each day without fail. He never forgot to bow in respect and recognition of shared humanity with everyone. He never forgot to smile at whoever crossed his path in the halls during the day. In his forgetting, he had found something that most spend entire lifetimes seeking endlessly: absolute presence, unconditional love, freedom from the burden of accumulated knowledge. When he died sitting in meditation one morning as the sun rose over mountains, his face held the peaceful smile of someone who has nothing left to carry forward, nothing left to remember, nothing left to carry forward into any future moment at all. The monastery erected no elaborate memorial or monument to his teaching legacy or accomplishments. They simply carved 2 words on a simple stone marking the place where he sat. He forgot, the stone read. Nothing more needed saying about his way of being. Visitors who saw it often wondered what it meant exactly, what was being taught here. The monks would smile and say nothing in response to their questions about meaning, letting the mystery remain, letting each person find their own understanding when ready. Breathe deeply here, letting the story settle like snow on quiet ground in winter, like snow falling on a silent forest at night when no one is there to see. What does it mean to forget in order to remember what truly matters to us? We carry so much in our minds constantly, every moment of every single day. So many memories and plans and worries piled high like belongings in an overstuffed closet. They accumulate like dust gathering, weighing us down, cluttering our awareness with burden. What if you could forget some of that weight right now in this moment here? Not the precious memories you hold dear, not the important knowledge you need daily, but the unnecessary burden of constant thinking about everything all at once without rest. The rehearsing of past conversations endlessly, trying to get them right retroactively somehow. The planning of future conversations that may never happen as you imagine them happening. The running commentary on everything that happens throughout your day constantly without ceasing. What if you could set all that down, just for now, tonight, here in darkness? The forgetful monk teaches us that presence does not require memory at all, ever. Being fully here does not need a comparison to there, to some other time before. Kindness does not need to remember past kindnesses or plan future ones so carefully. It simply arises naturally when we are truly present with what stands before us now. Right now, nothing stands before you but this moment, this breath, this darkness here. Can you let yourself forget everything except being here just like this right now? Forget what happened today, what needs to happen tomorrow morning or next week ahead. Forget who you are supposed to be, what you are supposed to accomplish in life. Just be here, breathing, resting, present with the simple fact of existence continuing on. This is not escape from responsibility, not avoidance of what needs doing tomorrow. This is arrival at what has always been here beneath everything else accumulated over time. Your body has already forgotten to tense. Let go of unnecessary holding and gripping. Your shoulders have forgotten to carry their usual burden of stress and worry tonight. Your mind is beginning to forget its constant vigilance, its endless scanning for problems. This forgetting is not loss, but return to something more fundamental and true, always. a coming home to the simplicity that was always here beneath the complexity built. Let it continue. Let the unnecessary fall away like leaves from autumn trees naturally. Let yourself be as light as the forgetful monk who remembered only kindness always. Remembered only presence, only now, only this moment happening exactly as it is. If these teachings bring you peace, if these stories help you rest more deeply tonight, you are welcome to subscribe and return whenever you wish to rest again here. You are welcome to walk this path again whenever the world feels too loud and harsh, whenever demands pile up and peace seems distant and unreachable to your tired heart. This offering is here for you, a refuge from the noise and rushing of days passing. What matters is simply that you are here now in this moment, with these words, breathing, listening, allowing peace to find you where you already are waiting for it. The stories we have visited so far share a common thread running through them all. Though we have not named it directly until now, perhaps you have felt it moving. They speak of release, of letting go, of finding freedom, not through gaining more always, but through releasing what we hold too tightly in clenched fists that will not open. The blind monk released the need to see and found perfect expression flowing naturally. The cherry tree was released from pruning and taught surrender to natural growth and wildness. The forgetful monk released memory and discovered presence beyond thought and planning ahead. Perhaps you have noticed this thread weaving through the teachings so far tonight. Or perhaps it has worked on you beneath conscious awareness where change happens first. Either way is perfect. Either way, the teaching does its work faithfully and well. The teachings do not need to be grasped or understood by the thinking mind at all. They need only to be received like rain on open earth without resistance to what falls. The third story takes us far from monasteries, to a small village nestled at the base of a mountain range where peaks touch clouds floating above. In this village lived a potter named Kenji who had devoted his entire life completely, devoted his entire life to his craft with unwavering dedication and total commitment. He had studied with masters, learned ancient techniques passed down for many generations, practiced for decades until his skill was undeniable to anyone who saw his work. His pottery was respected throughout the entire region and beyond it widely known. People would travel specifically to purchase his bowls and vases from him alone. Drawn by the simplicity and elegance of his work, its refined beauty and perfection. But Kenji himself was not at peace despite his success and wide recognition. Despite his skill and reputation growing, he felt something missing in his work always. He could not name it, could not explain it to anyone who asked him about it. But he felt it like a hollow space at the center of his life and practice. His pots were beautiful, everyone agreed on that without question or reservation at all. But they felt somehow empty to him, as if they were perfect copies of something. Perfect copies of perfect forms rather than true expressions of something real and alive. Something real and alive and authentic from deep within his being calling to emerge. He began to stay later and later in his workshop each night working alone, trying to find what was missing, what eluded him despite his complete mastery of technique. He would throw pot after pot, each one technically flawless and perfect in every way. Each one somehow unsatisfying to his inner knowing, his intuition about what truly mattered. He grew obsessed with finding the perfect clay composition and texture for his work, the perfect glaze formula, the perfect firing temperature for each piece he created carefully. He traveled to different regions searching for better materials and deeper knowledge from others, studied with more masters, filled notebooks with observations and techniques meticulously recorded. Years passed this way in restless seeking without finding what he sought so desperately. His reputation grew even as his dissatisfaction deepened into something darker and heavier. His workshop filled with pots that were admired by everyone except their creator alone. His wife worried about him deeply, seeing how thin he had become over time, how distant from her and the children, how consumed by his obsession with perfection. His children grew up barely knowing him at all, hardly remembering his face clearly, as he spent every waking hour in pursuit of something he could not even define. One autumn morning, Kenji woke before dawn as usual to go work in his studio. He had not slept well, troubled by dreams of clay that would not hold form. As he entered the workshop in dim light before sunrise, he stumbled over something. He stumbled in the dim light and knocked over a shelf against the wall heavily. Pots crashed to the floor loudly, shattering into pieces everywhere around him suddenly. He stood frozen, looking at the destruction he had accidentally caused so carelessly now. Dozens of pots, representing weeks of careful work and effort, lay in shards at his feet. Something broke inside him in that moment, something deeper than pottery breaking. Something at the core of his being finally gave way under accumulated pressure of years. He sank to the floor among the broken pieces and began to weep openly and freely. All these years of striving endlessly, of trying to reach some impossible standard of perfection. And for what purpose? What had it all been for, really, in the end of everything? For pots that would eventually break anyway, would return to earth eventually in time, would become nothing in the end, just like everything else made by human hands. He wept for the time lost, for the obsession that had consumed him so completely, for the life he had not lived while chasing perfection that did not exist anywhere. As the sun rose, light began to fill the workshop, through eastern windows slowly. Through his tears, Kenji looked at the shards scattered all around him in complete chaos. And suddenly he saw something he had never seen before in all his years of work. The broken pieces were beautiful in a way the whole pots had never been at all. The way the light caught the glaze at the broken edges, creating unexpected beauty there. The unexpected patterns where the clay had fractured along its natural lines and weaknesses. The honesty of the broken edge showing the pot's inner structure exposed completely now. They were more beautiful broken than when they were whole and perfect and complete. He picked up a piece carefully, a fragment of a bowl he had made some time ago. He had made months ago, and considered one of his better works, though still not right. Now, broken, it revealed something hidden that wholeness had concealed from view entirely. The curve of the shard was elegant in its brokenness. Its incompleteness was beautiful. The way it fit in his palm was perfect, meant to be held exactly this way. The irregularity of the break was more interesting than any planned design could ever be. Kenji sat there for hours, examining the broken pieces scattered around him on the floor, seeing them as if for the first time with completely fresh eyes, without filters. He understood then what had been missing from his work all along these years. He had been trying to create perfection, to make pots that had no flaws anywhere, no cracks, no variation, no trace of the process that made them real and alive. He had been trying to impose his will on the clay completely and totally, to force it into ideal forms that existed only in his mind's conception of perfection. But clay is earth, and earth does not want to be perfect at all, ever. It wants to be itself, wants to express its own nature and character and being. He thought of his own life in that moment of recognition and deep understanding, how he had tried to shape himself into the perfect potter, the perfect artist creating, how he had denied himself rest, denied his family, denied anything that did not serve his obsessive pursuit of an impossible ideal he could never truly reach. He had treated himself like clay to be mastered rather than life to be lived fully. In trying to become perfect, he had become hollow inside, just like his perfect pots. That day marked a profound change in how Kenji worked and understood his craft entirely. He began working differently, with a completely different spirit and intention than before. He still used his skill and knowledge accumulated over decades of devoted practice daily, but he stopped trying to control every single aspect of the process completely now. He would center the clay on the wheel and then let his hands respond naturally, respond to what the clay wanted to do, what it asked from him in this moment. Sometimes the walls would be uneven, thicker in some places than others now visible. Sometimes the rim would wobble slightly as the wheel turned beneath his hands working. Sometimes accidents would happen naturally, a fingerprint pressed too deep into soft clay, a tool slip creating an unexpected line across the smooth surface, unintentionally appearing. Instead of throwing these pieces away or trying desperately to fix them perfectly again, he would work with what happened, incorporate it into the design emerging before him. He would enhance the wobble, make it intentional rather than accidental looking to viewers. Emphasize the fingerprint, let it show the hand that shaped this particular unique piece. Incorporate the mistake into the design, let it become a feature rather than flaw to hide. His work became less technically perfect and somehow more alive than before now. Each pot was unique now, carrying the marks of its making honestly and openly. Honest about its nature as earth shaped by human hands. Nothing more or less than this. People noticed the change in his work immediately when they saw it displayed for them. Some preferred his older, more perfect work that showed complete mastery and control over clay, but others responded to the new pieces with something deeper than admiration or appreciation. They saw themselves in the imperfect pots, saw their own cracks and variations reflected. The pottery became more than decoration for homes and spaces where people lived daily. It became a kind of teaching, a reminder carried into daily life and experience. A reminder that beauty includes imperfection, that wholeness includes brokenness always present. Kenji started leaving his workshop at reasonable hours finally after all those years working. He had dinner with his family, reconnected with his wife and growing children again, played with his children, sat with his wife in the evenings talking quietly together. He still loved pottery deeply, still devoted himself to his craft with dedication always. But it no longer consumed him entirely, no longer took everything he had to give. He had learned that the work was not about reaching perfection ever in any way, but about honest expression of what was actually happening in each moment of creation, about showing up and responding to what is rather than forcing what should be imagined. Years later, a young potter came to study with Kenji, seeking his knowledge and teaching. The student was talented but anxious constantly, worried endlessly about making mistakes, constantly worried about making mistakes that would ruin what he was creating with care. Kenji watched him for several days, seeing himself at that age reflected in the young man. Finally, he took the student into the workshop early one morning before others arrived. On a table in the corner sat a collection of broken pots carefully arranged together, shards and fragments arranged carefully like a museum display or altar to something sacred. "This is my most important work," Kenji said quietly, gesturing to the broken pieces there. The student looked confused by this statement, uncertain what was meant by it exactly. "But they are broken and destroyed," he said, stating the obvious problem with them. Kenji nodded slowly, smiling at the young man's confusion and uncertainty about this. "Yes, they are broken. And this is how I learned to make pottery truly, finally. Not from my successes that everyone praised and admired, but from my failures that taught. Not from perfection achieved through force, but from destruction that revealed truth hidden. These pieces taught me that broken is not the same as worthless ever in any way. That imperfect is not the same as wrong or bad or unworthy of love and appreciation." He picked up a shard from the table, held it carefully to the light streaming in. "The crack is where the light enters," he said, watching sunlight through the glaze there. "The break is where truth shows itself most clearly, without hiding or pretending to be. We spend our lives trying to avoid breaking, trying to remain whole and intact always. But breaking is how we become real, how we become authentic human beings finally. The pot that never breaks is the pot that was never truly used by anyone living, never truly lived with, never truly part of someone's daily life and experience and being. Better to break honestly than to remain whole and empty, forever unused and unloved." The student stood quietly, letting the words settle into him like seeds into dark soil. Kenji handed him the shard to hold, to feel its weight and texture in his palm. "Make something that can break," he said gently to the young man before him now. "Make something real that lives and breathes and can be touched by life's forces acting. Let your hands shake when they need to shake. Let the clay slip sometimes naturally. Let accidents happen naturally, and then honor them as teachers, as gifts to receive. This is the way forward for you. This is the practice you need to learn now. Not perfection that makes you hollow inside and empty, but presence that makes you whole. Not control that exhausts you completely, but conversation with the material and moment. Not the ideal form in your mind, but the honest expression of this moment right here. The honest expression of this day, these particular hands, this particular clay before you now. Let your breathing slow even further now, feeling the weight of your body here, feeling the weight of your body sinking deeper into rest with each breath passing. The story of the potter speaks to something we all carry inside us without exception. The voice that demands perfection, that criticizes our cracks and variations endlessly always. That voice believes we must be flawless to be worthy of love from anyone ever. Must never break to be valuable to anyone. Must always hold ourselves together perfectly. But you are not pottery to be judged by some external standard of perfection existing. You are a living, changing, growing being moving through time and space and experience. You have cracks that have formed over years of living fully and openly with life. You have places where you broke and mended, where you broke and mended again and again. You have imperfections that make you uniquely yourself, unlike anyone else who ever lived. These are not failures that need hiding or fixing or correcting somehow with effort. They are where the light enters, where truth shines through most brightly without hiding. They are what makes you real rather than an idealized copy of what you imagine. What you think you should be according to standards you never chose for yourself freely. What in your life have you been treating as a flaw that might actually be something else? Might actually be a feature, a gift, something precious and important to who you truly are. What brokenness have you been trying to hide that might actually be your greatest gift? Your greatest authenticity, your truest self showing through the cracks and breaks honestly. The work is not to fix yourself into some ideal form that never existed anywhere, but to accept yourself exactly as you are in this moment right now without judgment. Not to become perfect, but to become honest with yourself and with others around you. Let this understanding settle into your bones like warmth, spreading slowly everywhere, like the first rays of morning sun spreading warmth after a cold night of darkness. You do not need to be other than you are right now in this moment here. The cracks are permitted, allowed. Welcome here in this space with these words tonight. The variations are not problems needing solutions, but features of your unique design here. The ways you do not match some imagined ideal are actually the ways you are real. The ways you are most beautifully yourself, most authentically who you came here to be. Rest in this deep knowing. Let the striving soften like ice melting in spring sun. Let the self-criticism quiet like wind dying down at evening when day finally ends. You are already complete in your incompleteness, already whole in your brokenness somehow. Whole does not mean flawless or perfect or without any cracks showing to the world. Whole means nothing missing, nothing extra, just exactly this as you are now in truth. In a kingdom that no longer exists anywhere on any map we have or know. In a time before maps were common or reliable for travelers going far from home. There was a queen who could not sleep at night, ever peacefully without struggle. She had everything a person might want or wish for in life and experience. Wealth beyond measure, power over a vast kingdom, beauty renowned in songs sung, intelligence respected by scholars everywhere, subjects content under her wise rule throughout. Yet every night without fail, she would lie awake in her bed staring at ceiling above, while her mind raced through endless worries about everything and nothing simultaneously churning. She worried about threats that might emerge from neighboring kingdoms someday without warning, about alliances that might crumble under pressure or changing circumstances over time, about the health of her children, whether they would survive to adulthood safely without illness, about the loyalty of her advisors, whether they could be trusted completely with power. She worried about decisions made years ago, whether they had been wise or foolish choices, about consequences that might still be unfolding in ways she could not see clearly yet. She worried about the future of the kingdom after her death eventually would come, about whether she was ruling wisely, whether history would judge her kindly or harshly, about what historians might write about her reign centuries from now when all was dust. No remedy helped her find rest despite trying everything available to her everywhere. Physicians brought her sleeping draughts made from special herbs and rare flowers from far lands. But they left her groggy without bringing true rest, true peace to her racing mind. Musicians played soothing melodies in her chambers while she lay there in darkness listening, but her mind continued racing beneath the music, unable to slow down or stop spinning. She tried exercise until exhausted, tried meditation though she could not still her thoughts. The insomnia deepened year after year, becoming worse instead of better with passing time, until she began to fear she would never sleep peacefully again in her entire life. Finally, she heard of a wise woman who lived in the forest beyond the borders. Lived in the forest beyond the kingdom's borders in wild places seldom visited by anyone. This woman was said to understand the nature of worry like no one else anywhere, to have knowledge of peace that transcended understanding or explanation with words alone. The queen travelled to her in secret, disguised as a common traveller on the road, unwilling to admit publicly that even her great power could not solve this problem. She found the wise woman living in a simple hut beside a stream flowing constantly. The woman was very old, her face deeply lined with years of living and experiencing. Her movements slow but deliberate, each gesture intentional and complete in itself always. She invited the queen inside without ceremony, offered her tea without formality or protocol, and listened as the queen explained her predicament, her suffering without sleep or rest. When the queen finished explaining everything, the wise woman sat quietly for a long moment, watching the light play on the surface of her tea in the cup before her gently. Finally, she spoke in a voice like rustling leaves in gentle wind blowing through. "Your worry is like this stream outside my door," she said to the queen sitting across, gesturing out the window to where water flowed over smooth stones continuously day and night. It flows constantly day and night, never stopping once, always moving forward downstream. You stand on the bank trying to block the flow with your hands and body, trying to control where it goes, how fast it moves, what it carries with it. This is exhausting work, and it never succeeds at what you want to achieve. The stream always finds a way around or through your attempts to control its flow. The queen frowned, not understanding what this meant for her situation and suffering now. But I must control it somehow. I must manage these worries and concerns weighing on me. I am responsible for an entire kingdom that depends on my decisions every single day. People depend on me to think ahead, to anticipate problems before they occur everywhere. I cannot simply let worry flow unchecked through my mind day and night without end. The wise woman smiled gently, her eyes kind and understanding of the confusion there. I did not say to let it flow unchecked without any attention at all from you. I said to stop trying to block it with force and will and resistance to what is. These are different things entirely, opposite approaches to the same situation you describe. She stood slowly and walked to the door, beckoning the queen to follow her outside. They walked to the stream's edge where water moved steadily over smooth stones below. "Look at the stream carefully," the wise woman said, pointing to the flowing water there. "Does it worry about its flowing? About where it is going, ultimately in the end? Does it concern itself with where it has been already in the past before now? No, it does not think about these things at all, ever in any moment passing. It simply flows according to its nature. That is all it does without question or doubt. It encounters obstacles like rocks and fallen branches and moves around them naturally. It changes course when necessary without hesitation or second-guessing its choices made. But it does not stop to argue with the rocks about being there in its path." The queen watched the water moving, feeling something shift in her understanding slowly now. "But I am not a stream made of water flowing," she said, stating the obvious truth. The wise woman nodded in agreement with this true statement about reality before them. No, you are not a stream. You are the bank that contains the flowing water. You are the container that allows the flowing to happen within certain boundaries here. Worry will come like water from upstream, from the source in the mountains above. Trying to stop it completely only creates flooding, backing up behind your attempts at control. But if you allow it to flow through your awareness without grabbing at every single one, it moves on naturally downstream away from you. It does not stay and accumulate endlessly. She picked up a fallen leaf from the ground and placed it carefully in the water there. Placed it in the water where they stood watching together in silence for a moment. They watched it drift downstream slowly, spinning gently in the current moving forward, catching on nothing, moving freely with the flow of water carrying it away from them. Each worry is like this leaf appearing on the surface of flowing water moving past. It arrives from somewhere upstream unknown, floats through your awareness for a time briefly, and moves on downstream away from you naturally if you allow it to go freely, unless you grab it with your hands, unless you hold on to it tightly and closely. Unless you hold on tight, examining it closely, giving it weight and substance and power, then it cannot move on naturally as it should. Then it stays with you indefinitely. Then it stays, joined by more leaves arriving constantly from upstream every single moment, until you have built a dam of captured worries blocking the natural flow completely. The Queen felt tears forming in her eyes as understanding dawned finally and clearly. This was so simple, yet she had never seen it this way before in all her years. She had been grabbing every worry that appeared, every single one without any exception, holding on tight, examining it, giving it weight by her constant attention to it, building dams of accumulated worry that grew higher each day and night passing. But how do I stop grabbing at them when they appear? She asked helplessly, feeling desperate. The wise woman sat down on a large rock by the water's edge there beside stream. By noticing that you are grabbing when it happens, she answered with great simplicity. By seeing the worry as just another leaf in the stream of consciousness flowing past. By understanding that you are not your worries any more than you think you truly are. Any more than the stream is defined by the leaves that float on its surface temporarily. They sat together in silence for a long time, just watching water flow continuously on. The Queen began to notice her thoughts more carefully than ever before now in life. A worry would arise about her youngest child's health and well-being at home safely. Instead of immediately grabbing it tightly, spinning into scenarios and fear and endless planning, she simply noticed it appearing like a leaf on water's surface drifting past her there. There is a worry about my child's health appearing now, she noticed and named it. The worry did not immediately vanish into nothing, did not disappear entirely just from noticing. But something about naming it clearly, seeing it as just a thought appearing in awareness, allowed it to be just a thought rather than a command requiring immediate action from her. Another worry arose about a political alliance with the Northern Kingdom nearby threatening. Again, she practiced just seeing it float past without grabbing it immediately and tightly. There is a worry about the Northern Alliance, she noticed calmly and clearly without reaction. The worry existed, that was undeniable. It was present in her awareness right now, but she did not have to become it, did not have to merge with it completely. She could remain the bank containing the flow, allowing the water to move naturally, rather than becoming the water itself, lost in its movement and direction endlessly. This practice was not easy after years of habitual grabbing and holding everything tight. Her habit was to grab immediately, to engage, to try solving every potential problem, to try solving before it occurred, to anticipate and prepare and plan endlessly ahead. But gradually, sitting by the stream in silence with the wise woman there beside her, she began to feel the difference between noticing worry and becoming worry entirely without separation. The wise woman spoke again after a long silence between them both sitting together, her voice blending with the sound of water flowing over smooth stones continuously day and night. The mind produces thought the way the heart produces blood constantly and automatically always. The way the lungs move air in and out, breathing without conscious direction or effort. This is its nature, its function, what it does moment after moment without ceasing. Trying to stop thought is like trying to stop your heart from beating in your chest. Exhausting and pointless, impossible to achieve for more than brief moments of time. Instead, learn to let thought move through without obstruction or resistance blocking its path. Learn to be the spacious awareness in which thought occurs and dissolves naturally always. Rather than being the thought itself, identifying with every thought that appears in mind. The Queen stayed with the wise woman for 3 days and nights learning this, sitting by the stream, practicing this new way of being with her mind and thoughts. She would notice when she started to build dams again, when she began grabbing tightly, when she began grabbing at worries and holding them tight against her chest, in fear. She would gently release them, let them float downstream and away from her completely. Return her attention to the flowing present moment happening right now, here only. On the 3rd evening, as she prepared to return to the palace and her duties, the wise woman gave her a smooth river stone worn by centuries of water flowing. "Keep this with you always," she said, pressing it into the Queen's palm gently. "When you cannot sleep, hold it in your hand and feel its smoothness from the water. Remember that you are not the worry, but the space in which worry appears and passes. You are not the leaf floating past quickly, but the stream carrying it onward always. You are not the thought, but the awareness that notices thinking happening without judgment." The Queen returned to her palace, changed in some fundamental way inside herself. She still had responsibilities, still faced genuine challenges in ruling a kingdom wisely. Worry still arose in her mind constantly. That did not stop or disappear at all. But she related to it differently now, with more space and less identification completely. When sleepless at night, she would hold the stone and remember the stream flowing. She would notice the worries floating through her mind and let them pass by freely. Let them pass without grabbing, without building dams against the natural flow of consciousness. Sometimes she could do this easily, the practice flowing naturally without effort at all. Sometimes she would catch herself building dams again, old patterns returning strongly to habit. But gradually, slowly over weeks and months passing, sleep began to return to her. Years later, her daughter, who would one day be queen herself, asked about the stone. Asked about the smooth stone her mother always kept nearby on the table beside her. The Queen told her about the wise woman in the forest beyond borders somewhere. About the stream. About learning to let worry flow rather than building dams against it. "This is the most important thing I can teach you," she said to her daughter gently. "Not statecraft or strategy or how to manage a kingdom's affairs wisely and well. But this simple practice of being with what is without resistance to what appears. Learn to be the bank containing the flow, not the water being carried away helplessly. Learn to hold space rather than hold on to everything that appears before you. This is where true peace lives within us, beneath everything else we do and are. The daughter did not fully understand these words, not then at her young age, but she kept the lesson in her heart like a seed waiting patiently for right conditions. And when her own time came to rule, when her own worries began to accumulate and disturb her sleep just like her mother's had years before, she remembered those words and that smooth stone given and held. She travelled to the same forest, found the same stream flowing continuously forever. The wise woman had long since died, passed into the earth decades before this visit. But the water still flowed over the same stones, teaching the same lesson always. She sat on the same rock her mother had sat on years ago in the past, and practiced the same letting go, the same gentle allowing of what is happening now. The stream taught her as it had taught her mother before her in another time, as it had taught countless others over centuries of flowing steadily onward, without end. The water knows something that the mind forgets constantly in its busy rushing forward. That flowing is easier than fighting against what is happening right now before us. That release is simpler than control, requiring less energy and effort always in everything. That peace comes from allowing rather than forcing things into shapes we prefer imagining. Let this image rest in your awareness now, the stream flowing steadily forever onward, carrying leaves downstream without holding on to any of them tightly or permanently ever. Your thoughts are like those leaves appearing, arising naturally from nowhere specific known, drifting through the awareness that you are fundamentally, then dissolving back into nowhere. You do not need to stop them or judge them as good or bad or wrong, or fix them or make them different from what they naturally are right now here. You need only to notice them appearing and let them pass through naturally and freely. Worry will come to you, this is certain. This is part of being human and alive. How you relate to worry, that is where your power lies, your freedom to choose. Feel your breath flowing like water in and out continuously, without any effort required. Feel your thoughts drifting like leaves, arriving and departing continuously without control. You are the awareness that notices both breath and thought, that holds both gently. You are the spacious presence in which everything occurs, the container for all experience. You are the bank of the stream, not the water flowing through endlessly day and night. The stream of worry flows naturally according to its nature, but you need not flow with it. You can remain here steady and grounded, watching, allowing everything to be as it is. This practice is not about achieving perfect calm or never worrying again ever in life. It is about changing your relationship with the movement of your mind fundamentally always. The queen still worried after visiting the wise woman in the forest long ago then, but she worried differently now, with more space around the worry, more perspective seeing. She could notice when she was building dams again against the natural flow of things, and choose to let the water flow freely through her awareness instead of blocking. This is freedom, not from feeling worry, but from being trapped by feeling it completely. Not from having thoughts, but from believing you are your thoughts, entirely without question. Tonight, as you lie here in darkness, listening to these words passing through awareness, practice this gentle allowing of whatever arises in your experience right now without judging. When a thought arises about anything at all, notice it appearing like a leaf floating. When a worry floats past about tomorrow or yesterday or anything else ever in time, name it softly to yourself. There is a worry about tomorrow appearing now here. See it clearly as just a thought passing. Then let it drift on downstream away. Return to the breath moving in and out, to the body resting here in darkness, to the simple fact of being here in this moment that is always now, always here. This is the practice. This is the way forward through all difficulty and challenge faced. Not fighting the stream of consciousness, but learning to sit peacefully on the bank, watching. Not trying to control the flow, but allowing it to move as it will naturally. Not grabbing every leaf floating past, but watching them. All drift past into distance eventually. The fourth story brings us to a meditation hall where a group of students gathered. A group of students practiced daily under the guidance of an old teacher who knew. These students were dedicated and sincere in their practice always, sitting for hours in silence, studying texts carefully, following precepts strictly, doing everything they believed was required. They wanted deeply to awaken, to achieve enlightenment, to reach the goal they were told, to reach the goal they had been taught to seek by teachers and traditions everywhere. Among them was a young man named Tenzo, who struggled greatly with everything always, while others seemed to make progress steadily, reporting experiences of clarity or bliss to teacher. Tenzo experienced only boredom and discomfort sitting on his cushion day after day. His legs would ache terribly after short periods of sitting in the position required. His mind would wander constantly to trivial things, to memories and plans and nonsense. He would fall asleep during meditation sessions or become so restless inside and agitated, become so restless he could barely remain still for even a few minutes without moving. He felt like a failure, the worst student in the hall by far, without any question. One morning, after meditation ended, Tenzo approached the teacher privately in the garden. "Master," he said, bowing low with respect and humility, "I have been practicing for 3 years, and I have achieved nothing at all, no progress, no results, no experiences worth mentioning. I have no experiences of insight or special states, no moments of profound peace at all. I cannot concentrate for more than a few breaths before my mind wanders away completely. Perhaps I am not suited for this path at all. Perhaps I should leave this place." The teacher looked at him with an expression Tenzo could not read at all in his eyes. "Tell me honestly," the teacher said, "when you notice your mind wandering as it does, what do you do in response to noticing this happening to you constantly?" Tenzo answered honestly, without trying to make himself sound better than he truly was. "I feel frustrated with myself for failing again at this simple task of watching. I try to force my attention back to the breath with effort and willpower and struggle. I judge myself for being so weak, so undisciplined, so unable to concentrate on anything." The teacher nodded slowly, considering this response with care and attention and interest. "And has this strategy worked for you well? Has forcing and judging brought you peace?" Tenzo's shoulders sagged with the weight of his failure and disappointment in himself completely. "No, Master, it has not worked at all ever," he admitted with shame weighing heavy. "It only makes me more agitated, more restless, more unable to concentrate on anything." The teacher smiled then, unexpectedly, a warm, genuine smile of recognition and understanding. "Good," he said, surprising Tenzo completely with this response to his obvious failure. "You have learned something very important. Though you do not recognize it yet at all, you have learned that force does not work, that violence against yourself always fails." He gestured for Tenzo to sit beside him on the bench there in the garden. Most students come here believing they must achieve something special, reach some state. They sit in meditation like soldiers going to battle with themselves and their minds, determined to conquer their minds, to dominate thought and feeling with pure will alone. They force concentration, suppress wandering thoughts, judge every experience as success or failure. This approach can produce certain temporary states sometimes, that is true enough to say, but it misses the deepest truth, the most important teaching of all practice here. Tenzo listened carefully, feeling something loosen in his chest and belly, some gripping, releasing. The teacher continued speaking, his voice gentle as falling rain on stone in summer. True, meditation is not about achieving concentration or special states of mind at all. It is about learning to be with what is, exactly as it is now, without changing. Your wandering mind is not an obstacle to meditation at all, ever in any moment. It is the meditation itself, the practice happening right now before you experiencing it. Noticing the wandering, coming back gently without violence or judgment toward yourself ever. Noticing again when it wanders again inevitably, coming back again patiently and kindly. This is the practice, this endless returning with gentleness toward yourself, always without end. He paused, letting the words settle into Tenzo like seeds into earth waiting to grow. "You say you have achieved nothing in 3 years of practice here with us together, but you have learned to notice when your mind wanders. That is not nothing at all. You have learned that force creates suffering, that violence against yourself fails always completely. This is not nothing at all. This is profound wisdom already present in you now. You have developed the humility to admit struggle, rather than pretending success like some. This is not nothing. This is honesty. This is the beginning of real practice finally. In fact, you may have learned more than those who report profound experiences here." Tenzo felt confused by this response, uncertain what was being said to him now. But they seemed to have achieved concentration finally after all their efforts and work. Peace and stillness of mind that I can never achieve no matter how hard I try. I have only restlessness and wandering, only failure and frustration and complete inability. The teacher shook his head gently, looking at Tenzo with compassion in his eyes. Perhaps they have achieved something real, or perhaps not. Who can say for certain? Or perhaps they have achieved only the idea of peace, the story of concentration only. Perhaps they have learned to perform meditation rather than to be meditation itself truly. You, on the other hand, have failed to perform successfully for anyone watching you. This failure is actually closer to truth than their performance of success appearing perfect. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where other students walked slowly in meditation, practicing formal walking back and forth. There is a difference between the performance of peace and the being of peace itself. Performance requires constant effort, constant maintenance and vigilance against anything threatening. It must be protected from anything that threatens the peaceful image being projected outward. But being peace requires nothing at all, No effort, no maintenance needed ever. It is already here right now, underneath all the striving and performing and seeking, underneath all the seeking and grasping for something better than this moment is. He turned back to Tenzo, sitting there, listening carefully to every word being said. In general conversation with anyone, the teacher continued speaking gently and slowly always. The teacher often said that meditation was not about becoming someone else or somewhere else. Most monks become trapped in remembering texts and repeating words of others endlessly. They memorize sutras but forget to live them, to embody what they say in action. They can recite every teaching perfectly but struggle to offer simple presence to others. Their minds are full of spiritual concepts and philosophical understanding of great depth, but their hearts remain somehow closed to the actual moment happening right now here. Tenzo practiced for years after that conversation, slowly learning what the teacher meant. He stopped trying to force concentration or achieve special states through effort and will. Instead, he simply sat with what was actually happening, moment after moment without end. Sometimes his mind wandered, sometimes it settled, sometimes sleep came over him completely. He learned to meet each experience with the same gentle acceptance, the same kindness. The same kindness he would offer a confused child trying hard at something very difficult. He stopped dividing his practice into good sessions and bad sessions of meditation. Every session was simply what it was, neither good nor bad, just this moment. Gradually, something shifted in him that he could not name or explain to anyone. Not a dramatic awakening or sudden enlightenment, but a growing ease with being himself. A growing ease with being himself exactly as he was without needing to be different. He discovered that the peace he had been seeking was not something to achieve at all, but something that was always present when he stopped fighting, when he stopped reaching, when he stopped trying to be someone other than who he actually was in this moment. Years later, the old teacher died peacefully in his sleep one night without suffering. Before his death, he had named Tenzo as one of the teachers to guide others. Many students were surprised, having watched Tenzo struggle for so many years without success. But those who had practiced alongside him understood what the teacher had seen clearly. Tenzo had learned the most important lesson: not how to achieve states, but how to be present with whatever arose without resistance, without violence toward himself. This genuine acceptance was more valuable than any temporary state or experience could ever be. When students came to Tenzo with their struggles in practice, he would listen with understanding. He would listen with understanding born from his own years of failure and confusion and doubt. He never pretended to have answers or special wisdom to share with them seeking. Instead, he would simply encourage them to be honest about their actual experience happening, to stop performing for anyone, including themselves, and just be with what is truly here. Many students found this teaching frustrating at first, too simple to be valuable or real. They wanted techniques, wanted practices, wanted something to do to fix their problems. But Tenzo would gently redirect them back to the simple question, always the same. What is actually happening right now in this moment? Not what should be happening, not what you wish was happening or hope will happen someday in the future, but what is actually here right now, exactly as it is without any story added. This question, asked again and again with genuine curiosity and care and presence, slowly began to shift how students related to their practice and their lives entirely. They stopped fighting quite so hard against their own experience as it was appearing. They stopped judging themselves quite so harshly for being human and imperfect always. They discovered that the practice was not about becoming someone else, somewhere else, but about fully inhabiting this moment, this body, this mind exactly as it is now, about fully inhabiting this moment, this body, this mind exactly as it is. They discovered that peace was not a destination to reach through effort and struggle, but the natural state that emerged when struggling finally ceased, when fighting ended completely. Let yourself feel this teaching now, not as something to understand intellectually with mind, but as something to experience directly in your own body and breath right now. You have been lying here listening for some time now, following these stories and teachings. Perhaps your mind has wandered many times already, drifted away from the voice speaking. This is natural. This is what minds do. They wander according to their nature always. There is nothing wrong with you, nothing to fix or improve or perfect about this. You are exactly as you should be, exactly as you are meant to be right now. The practice is not to force yourself to stay focused or to punish yourself when attention drifts. The practice is simply noticing when attention has drifted and gently returning it here. Gently returning again and again, as many times as needed throughout this night together. This gentle returning is the practice. This is what builds the capacity for presence over time. Not forcing, not striving, not trying to be someone you are not right now today. Just this simple, kind attention to what is actually happening in this moment here. Can you feel that? Can you feel how much more restful this is than constant striving? How much easier it is to simply be with what is than to fight against it endlessly. Your body knows this already, has always known this deep truth without words or concepts. Your breath continues without your effort, without your management, without your oversight at all. Your heart beats steadily, your blood flows. Your cells renew themselves continuously always. All of this happens without you needing to figure out how or force it to be so. Life lives itself through you when you stop trying to control every single moment. When you stop trying to control every single moment and simply allow what is arising. This is the great secret that is not secret at all, that has always been obvious. Peace is not something you create through effort. It is what remains when effort ceases. When the struggling stops, when the reaching ends, when the fighting finally gives way. What remains is simply this breath, this moment, this awareness holding everything. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary, just the simple fact of being here alive and present. Let yourself sink deeper into this recognition now as the night grows even quieter. The stories have shown you different facets of the same essential truth appearing in forms. That truth is this: you are already whole, you are already complete, you are already home. You have always been whole, complete home. You have never truly left that place. The seeking that drives you, the restlessness that pursues you, the feeling of something missing, all of that comes from a fundamental misunderstanding, a misidentification with what you are. You have believed yourself to be a separate self, a small, limited entity trying to survive. Trying to survive in a threatening world, trying to find peace and safety somewhere. But this separate self was never real, was only ever a story, a thought appearing. The truth is much simpler and more obvious than any story could capture fully. You are the awareness in which all stories appear and disappear continuously always. You are the space in which all experience unfolds, the consciousness that knows itself. Not the content of consciousness, but consciousness itself, pure and simple and unchanging. This awareness that you are is not separate from anything, not limited to anything here. It is not contained in your body, though your body appears within it always. It is not limited to your lifetime, though your lifetime is a wave within its ocean. It is the ground of everything, the source of everything, the substance of everything appearing. This might sound abstract or philosophical, but it is the most direct, immediate truth, more immediate than any thought, any sensation, any experience you could ever name or know. Right now, you are aware. This is undeniable. You cannot doubt this one thing. Even to doubt awareness, you must be aware to doubt anything at all existing. This awareness is what you most fundamentally are, beneath every label and identity assumed. You are not your name, though you have a name used by others to call you. You are not your body, though awareness includes the body appearing in experience. You are not your thoughts, though thoughts arise and dissolve within awareness continuously. You are not your emotions, though emotions move through like weather passing through sky. You are not your history, though memories appear as thoughts in present awareness now. You are not your future, though imagination creates images of what might come later. You are the awareness in which all of these things appear, none of them finally. The awareness that remains constant while everything else changes without ceasing in time. This recognition is not something to achieve in the future through practice or effort. It is something to notice right now, in this very moment, already present and obvious. You are aware right now. This is the only certainty, the only indisputable fact here. Everything else is open to question, could be illusion, could be dream, could be wrong. But awareness itself cannot be doubted because doubt itself is something you are aware. Rest in this recognition for a moment, not trying to understand it with your mind, but simply being it, which is what you already are without effort or trying. Just notice that you are aware, that awareness is here, that consciousness exists now. This simple noticing is enough. This is the entire practice. This is all that is needed. When you rest as awareness, when you recognize yourself as awareness itself rather than content appearing in awareness, something profound shifts within you without drama. The problems that seemed so urgent begin to matter less, to carry less weight somehow, because you recognize that they are movements in awareness, not threats to awareness. Awareness itself is never touched by any experience, never harmed by any content appearing. It remains always clear, always peaceful, always complete, regardless of what appears within. This does not mean you stop caring about your life or the lives of others around. It does not mean you become cold or detached or uncaring about anything that happens. In fact, the opposite tends to happen naturally when this recognition deepens over time, because you are no longer defending a small, separate self against a threatening world. Because you are no longer defending, you become more open, more spacious, more loving. You recognize that the same awareness that looks through your eyes also looks through every other pair of eyes, is the consciousness in every being existing. The boundaries that seemed so solid begin to soften. not disappear, but become more permeable, more transparent, more obviously conceptual than real and solid. You begin to feel your connection to everything, not as a belief, but as direct experience of the one awareness appearing as many forms in time and space. This is the great teaching that all the stories tonight have been pointing toward. The blind monk who released the need to see and found perfect expression flowing. He had stopped identifying with the limited self that needed eyes to create beauty. The cherry tree that taught surrender to what cannot be controlled by anyone ever. It grew according to its own nature, and in doing so taught acceptance of things. The forgetful monk who released memory and discovered presence beyond thought and time. He had stopped identifying with the accumulation of knowledge and lived as simple presence. The potter who accepted imperfection and found wholeness in brokenness appearing. He had stopped trying to create perfect forms and allowed the clay its own voice. The queen who learned to let worry flow rather than building dams against it. She had stopped identifying with every thought and recognized herself as the awareness. The student who learned that being is enough, that presence is the practice itself. He had stopped trying to achieve states and simply rested as he was naturally. All of them discovered the same truth through different doorways opening before them. That peace is not something to achieve, but something to recognize as already present. That you are not the small, separate self you believed yourself to be ever, but the boundless awareness in which that self appears as one thought among many. This recognition does not happen once and then remain forever without any effort. It is something to return to again and again throughout life as it unfolds before. Again and again, moment by moment, as the habit of identification reasserts itself. The habit of believing you are the thoughts, the emotions, the body, the story. But each time you recognize yourself as awareness again, it becomes a little easier, a little more natural, a little more obvious, until eventually it becomes your primary way of being rather than something you have to remember to practice. This is the maturation of the practice, not dramatic awakening, but gradual recognition of what was always true, always here, always available without seeking. And so we come to the final part of this journey together tonight here. The voice that has been speaking to you will begin to fade now into silence. But what it has been pointing to will remain, because it was never in the words. It was never in the words, but in the recognition they invited you toward directly. The recognition of what you are beneath every story, every identity, every temporary form. You are awareness itself, you are consciousness itself, you are presence itself, always. This is not a belief to adopt or a concept to understand intellectually with thinking. This is the direct, immediate truth of your experience in every single moment passing. Notice it now. Notice that you are aware, notice that awareness is here present. This simple noticing is enough. This is everything. This is the entire teaching complete. As you lie here now, feeling your body heavy with approaching sleep coming closer, let yourself rest as this awareness that you are, not as something separate observing, but as the awareness itself, not divided from what appears within it ever existing. Let the boundaries soften between observer and observed, between awareness and content. Let everything be held in one undivided field of conscious presence here now. This is your natural state. This is how you are when the artificial divisions dissolve, when the story of being a separate self finally quiets and allows truth to emerge. You are not separate from anything. You are not isolated. You are not alone, ever. You are the awareness in which all things appear, the consciousness that everything is. There is only one awareness appearing as many forms, one consciousness knowing itself. You are that. You have always been that. You will always be that beyond time. Rest in this knowing now. Let it fill you completely. Let it be all that remains. Let the words fade away into silence. Let the thoughts slow and quiet and cease. Let the sense of being someone drift away like morning fog under the rising sun. What remains when everything else is released? Just this simple presence, aware and at peace, needing nothing, seeking nothing, complete. Just this breath moving in space that has no boundaries anywhere in existence ever. Just this moment that is eternal, that is all moments, that is the only moment there. Just this awareness that you are, that everything is, that alone exists without second. Pure, simple, obvious, always here, always now, always home, always complete in itself. Nothing more is needed, nothing more is possible, nothing more has ever existed truly. You are this, only this, always this, never anything else but this simple presence. Aware, alive, at peace, complete, whole, perfect, free, home, here, now, this. Let the darkness hold you. Let the silence embrace you. Let the peace that surpasses all understanding carry you gently into sleep that comes naturally now. The night continues, the breath continues, the awareness continues, witnessing even sleep, knowing even unknowing, being even the absence of being, until all distinctions dissolve completely and there is only this one undivided reality. This one undivided reality expressing itself as everything, as nothing, as the eternal now. Rest now, sleep now, be now, and know that all is well, has always been well, will always be well, because there is nothing that is not this one awareness being. This one awareness being itself, knowing itself, loving itself as all that is appearing.